Why, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your host and guide, Zollin Ironshield, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the new War of the Rohirrim and what to expect for some of it. There will be no spoilers in this. I will be very clear. There's something I'm going to say that I think might be spoilish. I don't know anything, but I'll make sure to warn you. But we're going to basically be talking about what to expect as in the anime fusing with the Lord of the Rings style, right? With when I say Lord of the Rings style, I'm thinking more like the Peter Jackson adaptations we're also used to, right? We're really we have that kind of ingrained in us, right? Or any of the more Tolkien-esque way of how Tolkien reads the story, right? That's the most important thing in this whole thing. I know some people are a little hesitant on the whole being animated. Now, just real quick, so you guys kind of know a little bit of my background. Obviously, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. You all know that if you're on the channel. I love Lord of the Rings stuff, but I am someone who really likes anime. I'm going to make a comment to actually one of the tweets I saw from my friend Yoiston over on Men of the West, which I agreed with his tweet. But he was saying that one of the recent clips they put out felt very anime style in the way they were talking, right? They were speaking. And one thing we're going to talk about is the main characters right now today. What I think personally, on the main characters and kind of what we've seen, there has been quite a few trailers. I will link some of them in the description. I know the newest one I will link for sure, but if I can find the other ones previously, there's a few things I noticed immediately when I watched it. It was really good, but it did have a very dramatic anime style. So let's just start with the fusing of anime and Lord of the Rings, okay? I think it's an amazing thing. I'm stoked. The person who's working on it from the anime side, the Japanese side, he is an amazing person to work on. And of course, Peter Jackson, and then of course, Philippe, they're all working on the other side. I mean, from the Lord of the Rings perspective, it's going to be really cool, you guys. I don't want to hype it up too much. I know that some of us are hesitant in this day and age, right? Because a lot of things feel like have been kind of messed up. Not everything, but some things, right? We understand that. But you know me, I'm glass half full kind of guy. I really like to be more positive. So we're going to aim at this at a very positive perspective today. All right. So one of the biggest things is who are the main characters we're going to be covering in the War of the Rohirrim. Obviously, of course, the main character should be Helm Hammerhand. But there are a few things that if you know the original story that happens. I'm not going to say exactly what, because you all know, but I don't want to say it in case someone who's watching it for the first time has never read any of the background history, doesn't know what's going to happen. Okay, so basically, Helm, they basically brought in as another main character. I believe the main characters will be Hera, right, which has been clear from a lot of the trailers, and Helm. I think there will be a dynamic duo between father-daughter thing going on, which will probably be cool if they do it correctly. And I believe they will have Helm in most of it as a main character, or that we're following along with. I believe what they're going to use Hera for, personally, is she's going to be kind of like the way we see the world through her eyes, right? She's not totally aware of everything, so she kind of learns stuff when we learn stuff as the audience. Granted, for us fans that know the full lore, we don't really need that always, but still, it's for anyone who watches the show, right? So we're going to be following along. I think other main characters, I think some of the protagonists and the enemy is going to be that young leader of the Dunlendings, right? He'll probably be, I forget, Wrecker. Is that his name? I think it's Wrecker. I'll know for sure once I watch it. But I think he'll be like the arch enemy. I think what they're going to do is they're going to play on, they're having a childhood, like they know each other from childhood. So, but yet now with the worlds and their, countries kind of splitting, the Dunlendings, if you don't know, are another group of people in Middle-earth. That's not necessarily good or bad, but they tend to kind of join. They're not so good all the time, but it's not necessarily means they're good or bad. But basically what happens is, long story short, some feuding happens. They kind of knew each other when they were children, right? And I think they're going to really play on that dynamic a lot. So that will be kind of interesting. One thing that I want to jump over into anime real quick. So again, this is my Zollin's review playlist, you all know. But one of the things I really am thinking about with anime perspective. And I did skip something that I was saying when I made the comment about Yoiston's comment on Twitter, which was really good and I agreed with. And I kind of finished that up. But I want to go into that a little bit more. he was saying that this really feels like an anime style conversation that they showed between Hera and that other leader of the Dunlendings, right? It seemed very anime style. And I will say, it did seem pretty anime style. I did notice that, absolutely. So I was like, I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, it does have a very anime feel. Though the most recent trailer, I gotta say, had a very Lord of the Rings feel too. Very interesting. But it still had a very anime style feel. Now, what do I mean by anime style feel? And for those people who have not really watched any anime is a genre of animation, right? It's mainly from Japan, right? Pretty much is the origins of this type style. It's quite big here in the West now too, right? It's not a cartoon. Let's just make that clear for everyone who's watching, because cartoon is a certain type of animation style as well. And that's more of a Western term, even though it's used kind of all over the world as well. But remember that anime is a far more Japanese style. It's the way they draw it, the way, maybe they tell the story slightly, that kind of thing. Something that anime does really, really, really well, okay, is that they can take something emotional about some little feeling of a character or something, and they can expound on that feeling and go 5-10 minutes into it. Now, I don't think they're going to do this in Lord of the Rohirrim, but 5 or 10 minutes into it, and just to make it this dramatic thing that you never realized you really needed, but then realized, wow, this was amazing. I needed this, right? It could be an emotional feeling. It could be some sense, or smell, in some stories, animes, they smell something and they get all these memories and they go in this whole deep dive of the story, right? They're very good at connecting emotionally, all right? Animes are very good at connecting emotionally. Now, I will continue. One thing is, I don't really cry very much. I am actually very emotional. I feel people's emotions very solidly, right? I really do. But I don't usually cry or tear up at things. Usually the only time I ever have done that is in some anime I watch, some story they're telling, or the way they tell the story. So I think that's going to be something really, really neat they're going to be able to do with this story. I would venture to say, okay, this isn't the case in all scenarios, but most, I would say, personally, anime are better at portraying emotion than even real acting. And the reason for that is you can't actually do some of these things with real acting, with real life, right? When the anime, you're able to do certain things with the way they can make their expression stuff that a normal human face couldn't do with a camera, and that you can get a certain feel. And sometimes they do it very dramatically. It really depends on the anime you're watching or the person who writes it, of course. There are differences. But I noticed in that little clip, when Hera is doing stuff, it's very slow and very dramatic, and the lines she says are very anime style. Now, I think they're going to be epic for Rohirrim, because I think it fits storytelling-wise, but it did feel like maybe not quite where we'd say if it was a real-life actor doing it in a Lord of the Rings film for Rohan, but from an anime perspective, I think it was perfect in that clip. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm really excited about this show. I'm really excited. So I think one thing you should expect as a watcher then, because of this whole video I'm making right now, is that you should expect that it's not going to feel exactly like Lord of the Rings live action would. But please, do not misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying to lower your standards. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you, don't have unrealistic expectations, right? Don't be thinking, oh, it's going to be just like Peter Jackson's movie. I don't think it's going to be exactly like it. I think it will probably be on par with being that good, but I think it'll be something different. It's let's not compare, they might both be fruits, but one's an apple, one's an orange, right? So yes, you can compare them. Do you like apples better than oranges? Sure. But my point is, you might not want a one-for-one comparison everything. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm just warning you in that area. And again, I have a lot of expectations. I don't plan on dropping them because that's how it goes, right? I am a lot more encouraged from what I've seen for the War of the Rohirrim than I was for other series or adaptations of recent video games, TV shows, or anything Lord of the Rings, okay? I'm much more encouraged about it. I already have my tickets at the time of this video. Yes, by the way, if you didn't already know, tickets are already being sold when this video is released. So I'm excited about that. So, with those thoughts aside, a couple other little fun, quick things to look forward to. I think that you really, I think you should expect it to be a storytelling, again, through the eyes of Hera, but that we're going to see a lot of iconic locations, and it is going to feel like the same areas we're in to an extent. I think you can expect to see that. I think it's going to feel that. I think that it's going to be kind of neat to feel. It's going to feel almost nostalgic, even though we haven't heard the story, right? Like being in Edoras again and Helm's Deep and all these locations. I think that'll be really cool. I do believe that you will still feel that it has a Lord of the Rings vibe to it, like a storytelling out of one of Tolkien's stories. I believe that will still be definitely in there. I do not think the anime will overpower that or replace that personally from what I've seen, okay? It still felt very Lord of the Rings to me. So that's good. Now again, anime is just a medium to use. It is not something to replace Lord of the Rings. Don't misunderstand what I was saying there. It's just a medium, okay? So just like anything, right? You could have a painted version of a map. You could have a drawn version of a map. You could have a digital version of a map on a screen. It still would be a map. It would just look a little different depending on the medium you're using, but you should get a similar look if it's the same map, right? If they translated it right. Ooh, that is a thing to think about. I'm really, really stoked. I think it's gonna be really awesome. I've got my little War of the Rohirrim book right down here. Got my Rohan helmets ready to go. I've got my Theoden armor on. I'm ready. I even got a little Rohan blanket, which I was thinking of replacing my map with, but then I was like, I could put that there instead, but that would be a lot of work. And I like how the map looks because it matches the chair. Okay, moving on. So anyway, things to expect. I think these are all good things to expect. I think you should expect that it's going to have an anime vibe and feel. And it's not going to be identical to Peter Jackson's movies, but I think you will feel similar linkage between them. I think that it'll be really, really fun in the area of... I think visually it's going to be very impressive. I think people are going to be really surprised. I think people who are maybe not aware of anime and how visually amazing the art style is and how it can like tell these stories in such a different way than real acting can, or even cartoons. Cartoons are different. And you're going to be like, whoa, like how do you get these moving characters also with these backgrounds that look like they're painted, right? Or like they're just gorgeous. I think it's going to be absolutely visually stunning is my feeling. I think you expect that. I think you can expect the music to be insane. I think it's going to be so good, the music. I just have a feeling. I don't know why. I heard I do know why. That one girl did the last ending closeout song. I think her name is Paris. And she had an interview actually on with Keely from The Hobbit. Oh, forgetting the channel name. But it was a very good interview. I watched some of it. It was very good. But her music, before I heard the interview, I listened to the song like 2 or 3 weeks ago when they released it. And I heard it and I was just like, I will link it down there for you. You can watch after the video. I was just like, oh my gosh. It felt like nostalgia, like I knew this song. Right, like I've heard it 1,000 times, and yet it was the first time I ever heard it, and it caught me off guard. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning. I was working. I was on my email, and I was like, I started listening to it, and like I teared up, like emotionally, like awesome, not sad. Like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, and it's just like this like beautiful. I don't know, Celtic Norse. I don't know what the style is or what it is, but oh gosh, it's just gorgeous. It just fits right in with the Rohirrim feel and theme, and it has the epic orchestra, and then her singing is just, oh my gosh, it's really good. It's really good, guys. So that makes me think that the whole music is going to be awesome. If her piece, solo piece, and then also the orchestra that whoever is doing the composing in the background, wow, it was something. It's amazing. And what makes me happy is, as someone who is a big anime fan and Lord of the Rings fan, one thing about anime is they always have these really epic like intro songs that are like kind of like covers with a singer or a group of singers, like a band or orchestras. And it's really epic usually. An orchestra background music. They have beautiful background music in most animes. It's really a thumbs up to the whole anime industry. But that made me think this particular song had the feel of a theme song from anime, but yet it had the epicness of the horns and orchestra, like Howard Shore's music from The Lord of the Rings, and this whole background of music. And I was just like, that's gonna be awesome. So you expect good music. I think you can expect that. I think visuals are gonna be amazing. Music is going to be amazing. What have we already talked about now? I think the daughter-father... let's talk about characters a little bit more. To expect, I think that we know that we're going to get Saruman. And he's at that time. Now, again, that's not a spoiler because Saruman has been there for thousands of years. The War of the Rohirrim, again, this is a time thing. It's set 188 years, I believe, in the past from the one we see from the Lord of the Rings events. Okay, so that's when we're going to see it. Again, that's just a history thing. That's not a spoiler. That's just, we know it's in the past. And then, so we'll probably see him. I heard on a nice note that they are going to use a voice of the late Christopher Lee, right? Yeah. Who is Saruman. And they did say that they are going to be clipping his original recorded voice lines to make the Saruman voice lines, which is cool. They're not going to use AI or regenerate its voice. They're going to use actual original recordings of his voice. That's pretty cool. I think that's a respectful way to do that. And so I don't know if he's going to be a big character. I don't think you should expect him to be a huge character. I think he's going to be just there for a little bit. Maybe at the end, maybe in the middle, temporarily. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think it'll be a huge character. I think it's going to be Helm Hammerhand as a main character. It's going to be Hera, and it's going to be that other Dunlending kid, okay? Who's going to be kind of like the protagonists, battling. All right, that's what I think you should expect as the main characters. I think the two brothers, Hera's two brothers and Helm's two sons, I think they will be somewhat important, influential characters. I think they will be supporting characters for Helm and Hera. Now, again, some people might argue, oh, well, Hera wasn't really, mentioned very much. No, she wasn't. She didn't even have the name Hera, right, in Tolkien's original lore. She was just the daughter of Helm. But I think in this case, since it's anime, one thing that I respect with anime is, let me see how to word this nicely. Anime does a really good job of, putting out the strength of any character, whether they're male or female, in a way that is respectful to the entire whole. Does that make sense? Let me go into that just a little bit more. I think that the way they will put Hera into the story, and if she is kind of our main character that we follow along, I think it will be in a somewhat realistic way. All right. I know that sometimes I personally am someone that I have a family, just as a side note. I greatly respect women. I think that they're awesome. I think that strong female traits are a good thing. And I have nothing against that. But sometimes what happens is, right now in storytelling, and I'm going to say this really nicely, and some of you guys know what I'm talking about with this, but sometimes what happens is they'll take a female character and they'll try to make the female character almost all the traits of that a guy character might have, right? Or make her really, really or on another note, they'll make her kind of the term is a Mary Sue, where they're way too strong and that doesn't make sense, right? That kind of thing. I do not believe that is what they're going to do, because anime does a very good job of showing the strong traits of a character, all right, that is that are really strong traits. It doesn't mean there are exceptions where a girl, okay, might have some traits that are like a guy, good, strong this or that, and maybe he's really good fighter or warrior. That does happen, right? And there might be an exception where a guy might have traits that are maybe he's better at taking care of things. He doesn't really want to fight, that kind of stuff. He wants to take care of his family, and, he's more of a nurturing kind of person. There are, of course, exceptions like that in the reality. But I think a lot of times what happens is we get these mixings, right? We get these mixings, and where they'll push oh, well, this character can do everything, this girl character do everything a guy character could do. And they don't do it in a believable way. Does that make sense? I do not think that's going to happen. Now, again, this is an assumption I'm making. I think they'll do it in a good way. I think they'll do it where she's a strong, feminine character in that way. The term, without getting into anything political or anything, the term feminist is a term that it really, like, when people say the word, you probably are like, oh, let's not go there. Right? And that's for everybody, right? My own mom and sister are like, oh, let's not go there. I have a great mom and sister. I greatly respect them. I have a great grandma. They are fantastic. I love them. And they would agree with everything I'm about to say. But just so you guys know, that term, unfortunately, I feel like has been kind of, in both sides of the coin, been negatively tuned, and also rightfully so from certain people pushing things from that area and using that word as pushing certain things that maybe aren't. But the main thing to remember is, there are strong, Tolkien does an amazing job of writing strong female characters in his story without people changing them. Okay? Like, for example, Galadriel, right? We know, without going into, we're not going to go into Amazon Drink of Power, we're talking about War of the Rohirrim. But Galadriel, I feel like, is Tolkien's version is the pinnacle of a strong, motherly, commanding presence, right? That's well respected, and she doesn't have to flaunt her strength. Everybody knows she's in charge, right? That's a strong character, and that's what I appreciate and admire. I think what we're going to be having here is, I think that Hera will be a strong character in the story, but I don't think she'll be trying to overpower her dad. Like, she might end up having to, like, help take over. I think it's going to be a lot more like what we see in Éowyn, right? In the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Amazing job, right? That's so well balanced. They're not Mary Sue's. They have their weaknesses. They have their doubts. And they're like, how can I do this, right? But then they're also like, well, I have to do this because I have to help my family, right? Or I have to help my people or my kingdom. And I think that's what we're going to get out of Hera. I think. That's my gut feeling, okay? That's my whole spiel, why I went into all that. I think that, personally, I have my worries too, like everybody, but I think we should wait and watch the show and just enjoy it. Because I think that that's going to be well done. Because, back to what I was saying, the anime teams usually do that in a really well done way. They don't change things. They take the strengths of a character like that and build on them. The strengths and the weaknesses, right, of a certain character. Because every character in a story should have strengths and weaknesses, right? I mean, we can see that better than anything in Superman, right? Right, like, I mean, you can use, Superwoman too, right? Or Supergirl, as they call her. It's like they're like indestructible, but yet kryptonite can take them down, right? Like, they have some weakness. Now, that's an extreme, right? Because it's like ridiculously overpowered character, and then they have one ridiculous weakness. But that is something very interesting to keep in mind. So anyway, I think that'll be really cool. Another thing, jumping into another category, hopefully I didn't lose everybody watching the video, but, and again, here on this channel, I stay really, we stick to Lord of the Rings concepts, but sometimes I have to deep dive into certain things that might almost seem like it's going to touch on a political thing, but I really stay away from that because we don't need that. We're here to talk about fun Lord of the Rings stuff. So the next things you could be excited for, I think, in the Helm Hammerhand series, is I think we will see a lot of ties. And one thing I noticed in this recent trailer, so little side note that this might, I think another thing that you can expect are amazing maps. We've seen a little bit of them at the beginning, but I have a feeling they're going to be using maps as one of the ways to bring you through the story, just to kind of guide you and connect you to the original story. Now, I'm curious if they're going to be using any links to the original Peter Jackson trilogy, since they have the rights. I think you probably can expect a couple links here and there. I believe one of the people doing the narration, is the Éowyn actor. I forget her name right now, from the Lord of the Rings, and she's freaking amazing. All right, right? So again, I think that this is going to be, I think it's going to be a really fun movie. I think it's going to be a blast. I just think the anime, again, back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video, anime has such an amazing job of like pulling stories, right? And like emotions. And I think one thing it's going to do really, really well is the whole part with Helm Hammerhand and how he gets his name. We saw a little clip, which you can watch down there if you'd like to watch it ahead, of basically some of the story, which I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the middle, beginning, or end. I believe that'll probably be like towards the middle to end is what they show. But they basically show kind of like how Helm Hammerhand becomes the legend and the fear that Tolkien describes that he puts into the Dunlending's army is so well shown in that little clip. I hope it's expanded on even more in the movie. But it's just like the absolute terror that they have for him. And like everyone starts thinking he's like this monster, right? And I think it's really, really cool. I think it's going to be really awesome. I'm still interested in how they're going to tie everything together when it comes to storytelling. Because again, remember, this story has a lot of information that's there. And I bet you knowing Philibye and Peter Jackson and them, and then of course an Amazon guy, strike that anime guy. I just don't know why the AM and the AM, I think, just kind of like mixed up there in my mouth for a second. No cut, don't cut that, Zollin. But anyway, editor Zollin. But I think that the anime and this wonderful composer that they have for him, that is working on it, he's a very well-known anime director is the word I was looking for. He is going to be awesome. I think they're going to use every little bit of the original story. I don't think much of the original stuff will be cut out. Maybe a tiny bit here and there, but I think most of it will be used. The problem is for a 2 hour and 14 minute, I think it's, or the 18 minute, I forget, movie, you're going to have a little bit more to connect it, right? So that's where we're going to see how are they going to do the connecting and what are we going to expect on the connecting. I think that we will have a little bit of world building happen. I think you can expect that. I think we'll see a couple things here and there that maybe has never been in any of the Peter Jackson movies, maybe never mentioned in anything, where they might add a little bit, like a creature here or there, or like a certain area, or show a new location. I think you can expect that. In the storytelling, I think that you will have a few connections and stories, like, for example, the friendship between Hera and that Dunlending prince, or whatever he is supposed to be, early on in life, which is probably something that is not in the original story, obviously. Again, Hera getting the name Hera, which, by the way, some people were a little critical about the name Hera. I kind of like it, personally. I think it's good. It feels like that Norse background, which again, remember, the Rohirrim are based off kind of a Norse style of people, right? We know that Tolkien kind of mentions that too. So again, that's cool. I'd like to say that all of the characters I have seen seem very respectful to the original material, as in how they look and were described. And again, Hera looks great for being Rohirrim, right? And stuff like that. I think that's really, really neat. I think in this day and age, we're getting a lot of people being like, oh, let's interpret this character. We think it looks like this, when the original author explained how they looked or said, oh, they look like these people. So you probably should use that, right? Which it looks like the War of the Rohirrim is using well. So that's fantastic. I definitely expect some orcs. You can expect some snow trolls, apparently. That'll be cool to see. I'd like to see their version of snow trolls. We saw one in the Rings of Power, which was fine, but it was pretty interesting. It looked very cool. Actually, that was one thing in Rings of Power I thought was pretty cool. The snow troll. Maybe not necessarily the fight itself, but the snow troll was cool. But I'm excited to see that in the War of the Rohirrim. So yeah, character building I think will be amazing. I think they will definitely be using Hera will be probably the main character, but I believe that Helm Hammerhand will basically be the secondary main character of the story. I think the two brothers will be influential to an extent, but maybe not through the whole movie. We'll see. I think they're going to make a couple other side little characters to kind of help mentor or lead Hera besides her dad. I think we've seen that a little bit from the stuff. I think you would expect that. I think you would expect some of the conversations to be a little bit dramatized, as in, like, again, very anime style, maybe a little bit more epic, a little bit more like maybe some slow-mo to an extent. Anime does slow-mo well. guys. It's something you can't do in real movies very well. Case in point. I'm not going to go there with slow-mo. But it's very hard to do slow-mo in real life. Like shots, right? Without it looking really silly. We all know this. You've ever done a family video where you slow-mo something, you're like, and you know, it looks really dumb, right? My worst slow-mo impression there. But anime does it insanely well. And it's another way to pulling emotion out that anime does really well. I think you can expect that. So I think this is going to be a good fusion marriage of anime and Lord of the Rings. I really do. Now, I could be totally wrong on that. This video will not age well. But could be somewhere in the middle. Could be some of it's not great. Some of it's awesome, right? I tend to think it's going to be really pretty darn good. And again, I'm keeping an open mind on, I'm not really giving it, I'm not hard criticizing or hard, everything's going to be perfect at the beginning, because I think that's always the wrong course to take. But I am very optimistic about it. I think it's going to be pretty darn enjoyable. I will, of course, give you a non-spoilers video right after I watch it and say, you know, was it really good, or are there some critiques or things like that? And then later, you know, a week or so later after it's been out, I'll give you a, you know, non-spoiler. I mean, you know, full spoilers, what I think and everything, breaking stuff down. But I think it's going to be fun, guys. Now, a little side note, if you go to AMC theaters, you can get a cool popcorn full-sized hammer cup bucket. So I'm going to be trying to get that. I don't know why some people already have them, selling them on eBay. How did they get those? Anyone know? Let me know in the comments. But I'm going to try to buy one on the day of. And there's also like a mug you can get that says War of the Rohirrim. You know, it's probably a plastic mug. But hey, you know what? I'm down. I want to get one. So, again, anything to support. I really like the producer that's doing the Japanese anime side of it and animations for it. And I really, you know, Philippi and Peter Jackson obviously are just, you know, they might not do everything perfect, just like any human, but they're about as close as you can get for adaptations. So I'm really excited to see it all, and I think it'll be really fun. And they've had lots of time to work on it, right? It wasn't rushed, so we will see. And again, one thing that I think, my biggest thing, is that they don't bring anything from our world into it. And from what I've seen in the trailers, nothing looks like that. It looks like it's straight sticking to the Tolkien story, and the Tolkien feel of that world of Middle-earth. And that's a big one. Nobody wants that. I mean, there might be some people, but nobody wants stuff brought in from our world that seems similar. Whenever that happens with something, later you watch it 10 years later and you're like, oh, I know what they were talking about when they did that. But we don't want that. And I believe that they don't. You know, Peter Jackson said it best. Like, oh gosh, how long has it been now? It's 20 years? Yeah, 20 years. Gosh, I was a tiny little, barely here. But the Peter Jackson said it best when he made the comment that we don't want to put our political beliefs or our own thoughts, our own messages into this movie. This is about him, Tolkien, right? And that's what I'm really looking forward to in this too. And I believe that obviously when he said us, he was talking about him and Philippi and the couple of them that worked on the Peter Jackson trilogy, as we call it, even though he was doing the main lead. And that is something that you really see. That's also something, by the way, on a side note, you see in the Hobbit trilogy. Sure, it was rushed. He had to take over because someone else dropped the ball. That happens. But personal side note, just for fun, just to get a couple of you riled up, you can leave your comments. This is a joke. You know Zollin, I don't rile people up that much, I don't think. But I actually am really glad Peter Jackson did The Hobbit and not the other few people that were going to do The Hobbit, because I saw some of the thoughts they were going to, from the original people who were going to do The Hobbit, and I was like, oh, that looks awful, from my own personal thoughts. But yeah, I really like the Hobbit trilogy a lot. Like, I'm unapologetically love the Hobbit trilogy. Now, I grew up with it that came out right when I was just barely in high school. I was really excited about it, right? Yeah, I like the Hobbit trilogy. And I don't think you should be ashamed to like the Hobbit trilogy. I feel like some people try to shame you for liking it. I understand people that don't like it. I understand the things they talk about. Some of them I don't, but a few of them I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, right, there's a couple things that I'm critical about the Hobbit, the few things. That's a lot of times what turns people off from it. I get that. Anyway, this is not about the Hobbit. This is about the War of the Rohirrim. Have a great day in Middle-earth. Thanks for listening to my little spiel for 35 minutes. I hope you had fun. If you guys like these, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks to my Patreons for their support. Thank you, Red, for being a royal guardian. Patreon level. And yeah, I'll have some links down there for you. And I'm going to try to get this video out as fast as I can. So you guys can see my thoughts. And again, I don't think I did any spoilers. But I don't know how. I don't know much yet. So, I'm excited. I already got my tickets. I will be covering this here on the channel. For again, like and subscribe, my friends. I'll see you in the next episodes of Voice of the Rings. Stay happy. Baruch Hazad, Kuzad I Menu.